Marcus Thompson had nothing left but revenge. The drunk driver who killed his wife walked free while he worked nights to feed his daughter. But when he saw a stranger with a gun pointed at a beautiful woman's head, Marcus made a choice that would change everything forever. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Marcus wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished his night shift at the steel factory. His hands were rough and covered in grease, but he didn't care anymore. Every dollar he earned was for his daughter Emma, who was sleeping peacefully at home with Mrs. Chin, their kind elderly neighbor who watched her while he worked the graveyard shift. Life had been incredibly cruel to Marcus Thompson. 3 years ago, his beautiful wife Sarah died in a horrific car accident, leaving him completely alone with 5-year-old Emma. The drunk driver who killed her was a wealthy businessman named Richard Blackwood. He had expensive lawyers, political connections, and got only 18 months in prison. He was already out now, living freely in his mansion while Sarah lay cold in the cemetery. The pain in Marcus's heart never went away. Some nights he would sit by Emma's bed and cry silently, trying not to wake her. She was everything to him now, his reason to live, his motivation to keep working, his only source of joy in this dark world. As he walked through the quiet, empty streets at 2 a.m., Marcus thought about revenge every single night. He had fantasies about confronting Richard Blackwood, making him pay for destroying his family. But he couldn't risk leaving Emma orphaned. She had already lost her mother. She needed her father even if he was broken inside. One day, Marcus whispered to himself as he passed the cemetery where Sarah was buried, "One day that man will pay for what he did to us." The cold wind blew through his thin jacket. Winter was coming and he still didn't have enough money for Emma's new winter clothes. The medical bills from Sarah's accident had destroyed their savings. Every month was a struggle just to pay rent and buy food. But tonight, something would happen that would change his life forever. As Marcus turned the corner near the old Riverside Park, he heard a woman's scream pierce the silent night. His heart jumped with alarm. The sound was filled with pure terror and desperation. Without thinking, he dropped his lunchbox and ran toward the voice, his work boots pounding on the concrete. Behind a cluster of oak trees, he saw a sight that made his blood freeze. A beautiful young woman in an expensive white evening dress was on the ground, her face streaked with tears and dirt. A tall man in a perfectly tailored dark suit stood over her, pointing a silver gun directly at her head. Even in the darkness, Marcus could see the evil in the man's eyes. "Please, Victor, don't do this," the woman cried, her voice breaking with fear. "I told you I'll marry you, but please don't hurt me. I'll do whatever you want." The man called Victor laughed coldly, a sound that made Marcus's skin crawl. "Too late, Princess Isabella. You tried to run away from me tonight. You embarrassed me in front of all my business partners. You made me look like a fool. Now you must pay the ultimate price." Marcus's heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst. This woman was in terrible danger, just like Sarah had been that night 3 years ago. But this time he was here. This time he could do something. He couldn't save his wife, but maybe he could save this stranger. "Hey!" Marcus shouted, stepping out from behind a tree with his hands raised. "Let her go. She doesn't deserve this." Victor turned slowly, his cold eyes studying Marcus with disgust. He saw a working man in dirty clothes, someone he considered beneath him. "Walk away, you pathetic loser. This is not your business. Go back to whatever hole you crawled out of." "I'm making it my business," Marcus said, taking another step closer. His hands were shaking, but he kept moving forward. He thought of Emma sleeping at home, and how he wanted to be the kind of man she could be proud of. Isabella looked at him with desperate, pleading eyes. She was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, with long dark hair that shone even in the dim streetlight and eyes like precious emeralds. But right now, those beautiful eyes were filled with absolute terror and the certainty of death. "I said walk away," Victor screamed, his voice echoing through the empty park. "This is your last warning." Marcus saw the gun pointing directly at him, but he didn't stop walking forward. He thought of Emma sleeping safely at home with her teddy bear. He thought of Sarah and how he couldn't save her from that drunk driver. He thought of all the innocent people who died because others chose to look the other way. But maybe he could save this woman. Maybe one life could be spared tonight. "Run!" Marcus yelled to Isabella as he suddenly lunged forward with all his strength. The gun fired with a thunderous bang that echoed through the empty park like a cannon. Searing pain exploded through Marcus's chest like molten lava. He felt the bullet tear through his lung and lodge near his heart. Blood immediately began soaking through his work shirt as he collapsed to the cold ground. But his sacrifice had worked perfectly. While Victor was focused on shooting him, Isabella had scrambled to her feet and was now running toward the street, screaming for help at the top of her lungs. Victor cursed violently and fired another shot at Isabella but missed. Realizing that help would arrive soon, he turned and ran into the darkness like the coward he truly was, leaving Marcus bleeding and dying on the frozen ground. Marcus lay there, staring up at the stars through the bare tree branches. The pain was absolutely terrible, worse than anything he had ever experienced. But somehow he managed to smile a little. He had saved someone tonight. He had done something good with his life. Maybe Emma would understand someday that her daddy died as a hero. As his vision began to fade and darkness crept in from all sides, he heard sirens wailing in the distance. Isabella must have found help. Emma? He whispered weakly, blood bubbling from his lips. Daddy loves you so much. Be strong, my brave girl. Then everything went completely black. Marcus woke up in a hospital bed 4 days later. Bright white lights hurt his eyes terribly, and every breath felt like knives stabbing his chest. His entire torso was wrapped in thick bandages and tubes were connected to his arms. He could hear the steady beeping of heart monitors. Daddy, a small, sweet voice cried. Emma ran to his bedside, tears streaming down her little face. Mrs. Chen was right behind her, also crying and holding flowers. My brave little girl, Marcus whispered, his voice barely audible. He reached out with a shaking hand to touch Emma's soft brown hair. Daddy's okay now. The doctor said you almost died, Emma sobbed, climbing carefully onto the bed beside him. They said the bullet was really close to your heart. Don't leave me like Mommy did. Please don't leave me alone. Marcus's heart broke into a million pieces. He pulled his daughter close with his good arm. Never, sweetheart. I promise I will never leave you. Daddy's going to get better and we're going to be together forever. A nurse in blue scrubs came in, smiling warmly. Mr. Thompson, you have some very important visitors. They've been waiting for you to wake up for days. The door opened and Marcus couldn't believe his eyes. The woman from the park walked in, but she looked completely different now. She wore an elegant navy blue dress and expensive jewelry. Her hair was perfectly styled and she carried herself with royal grace. Several men in dark suits followed her, obviously professional bodyguards. You're awake, she said softly, her beautiful eyes immediately filling with tears of relief. Thank God. I was so afraid you might not make it. Emma stared with wide, amazed eyes. Daddy, is she really a princess like in my storybooks? The woman smiled and knelt down gracefully to Emma's level. Yes, little angel. I am Princess Isabella Maria Santos of the Kingdom of Valdoria. And your daddy is the bravest, most heroic man I have ever met in my entire life. Marcus was absolutely shocked. A real princess? The small European kingdom of Valdoria was famous around the world for its incredible wealth, beautiful landscapes, and beloved royal family. You saved my life, Isabella said to Marcus, taking his hand very gently. Victor Montenegro was going to kill me that night because I refused to marry him. He's a powerful, evil businessman who wanted to control my family's throne through marriage to me. When I kept saying no, he became completely insane with anger and jealousy. She squeezed his hand softly. The doctors told me the bullet was less than 2 inches from your heart. You almost died saving a complete stranger. You have a daughter who needs you, but you still risked everything for me. Over the next 2 weeks, Princess Isabella visited Marcus in the hospital every single day. She brought wonderful gifts for Emma, beautiful dolls from France, books in different languages, and clothes that looked like they belonged to a little princess. But more than the expensive gifts, she brought genuine kindness and warmth. Isabella told them her incredible story during those long hospital days. Her parents, the King and Queen of Valdoria, died in a tragic plane crash when she was only 20 years old. Her uncle became the temporary king, but she was still the rightful heir to the throne. She would become queen on her 25th birthday, which was only 6 months away. Victor Montenegro was a billionaire businessman who owned companies all over Europe. He had been obsessed with Isabella for years, believing that if he married her, he could control the entire kingdom and its vast oil and diamond reserves. I've been running and hiding from him for 8 long months, Isabella explained, her voice shaking with remembered fear. That night in the park, his men finally caught me. I had made the terrible mistake of sneaking away from my bodyguards. I was so tired of being protected every minute of every day. I just wanted to feel normal and free for one night. It was the stupidest decision of my life and it almost got me killed. Marcus learned that Isabella wasn't just incredibly beautiful. She was also brilliant, kind-hearted, and genuinely strong. She spoke 7 languages fluently, had studied international law and business at Oxford University, and truly cared about helping poor and suffering people around the world. Why didn't you have bodyguards with you that night? Marcus asked during one of her visits. Isabella looked deeply ashamed. I drugged their coffee and snuck out through a secret passage in my hotel. I thought I could have just a few hours of freedom walking around the city like a normal person. Instead, I walked right into Victor's trap. He had been watching the hotel for weeks. Emma absolutely loved the princess. Isabella would sit with her for hours every day reading fairy tales and playing games. She taught Emma words in Spanish and French, and told her stories about the beautiful kingdom of Valdoria with its mountains, beaches, and ancient castles. It was the first time Marcus had seen his daughter truly happy and excited since Sarah died. When Marcus was finally released from the hospital after 3 weeks, Princess Isabella insisted on helping them in ways that completely changed their lives. She quietly paid all of Marcus's massive medical bills, which would have bankrupted him and destroyed his credit forever. She also secretly arranged for Marcus to get a much better job as a financial analyst at her family's international investment company in the city. I can't accept charity from you, Marcus protested firmly. I need to take care of my daughter myself. It's not charity, Isabella said with determination. It's gratitude, and it's also smart business. I had my people investigate your background thoroughly. You have a business degree from State University with honors. You're incredibly intelligent and hardworking. You've been wasting your talents in factory jobs because you couldn't afford to take time off to look for professional work. Marcus was amazed. She had done a complete background check and discovered things about his education and abilities that he had almost forgotten himself. Isabella also arranged for Emma to attend St. Catherine's Academy, one of the most prestigious private schools in the state, with a full scholarship that covered tuition, books, uniforms, and even lunch. When Marcus started to object again, she knelt down and looked directly into his eyes. Marcus, you gave me back my life. You risked everything to save a complete stranger. Please let me help give you and Emma the life you both deserve. Sarah would want Emma to have every possible opportunity. Slowly, reluctantly, Marcus agreed. Not because he wanted luxury or handouts, but because he wanted Emma to have all the opportunities and advantages he could never give her on his own. For 4 wonderful months, life felt like something from a fairy tale. Marcus worked in a clean, professional office, using his intelligence and education instead of just his physical strength. His new salary was 3 times what he made at the factory. Emma was absolutely thriving at her new school, making friends and excelling in all her classes. Most importantly, Princess Isabella visited them several times each week, gradually becoming like family. She would have dinner with them, help Emma with her homework, and stay to watch movies together. Marcus tried desperately to ignore his growing feelings for the princess. She was royalty from another world and he was just a working single father. But he couldn't help falling deeply in love with her incredible kindness, her sharp intelligence, and the magical way she made Emma laugh with pure joy. One evening in late autumn, as Isabella was reading Emma a bedtime story about brave knights and dragons, Marcus's cell phone rang with an unknown number. Marcus Thompson? A cold, threatening voice said. Yes, this is Marcus. Listen very carefully. Stay away from Princess Isabella, or your precious little daughter will pay a terrible price. I know where she goes to school. I know her schedule. I know everything about your pathetic little life. The line went dead immediately. Marcus's blood turned to ice water, and his hands began shaking uncontrollably. Victor Montenegro had found them. Marcus immediately called the police, but they said they couldn't do much about a single threatening phone call without more evidence. Isabella's security team, led by the experienced Captain Rodriguez, was much more helpful and took the threat very seriously. Victor has unlimited money and dangerous connections all over the world, Captain Rodriguez explained during an emergency meeting. He's been watching and waiting for months, learning your routines and vulnerabilities. This threat means he's ready to strike. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep at all. He sat in a chair by Emma's bedroom door with a baseball bat, watching her peaceful, innocent face as she slept. He had already lost Sarah to violence. He absolutely could not lose Emma too. The attack came on a bright Tuesday afternoon, in broad daylight when Marcus felt most safe. Marcus was walking Emma home from school just like he did every day. They were holding hands and talking about her art project when 3 black SUVs with tinted windows suddenly surrounded them on a quiet residential street. Armed men wearing masks jumped out before Marcus could even think about running. Run, Emma! Marcus shouted desperately, pushing his daughter behind a parked car. Run as fast as you can. But there were too many of them and they had planned everything perfectly. While 2 men pointed guns at Marcus, 3 others grabbed Emma. She screamed for her daddy as they carried her toward one of the vehicles. Let her go. Marcus fought like a man possessed, throwing punches and trying to reach his daughter. Take me instead. She's just a little girl. But they hit him repeatedly with their gun handles until he collapsed, bleeding from his head and barely conscious. Victor Montenegro sends his regards, the leader said coldly. Tell the princess she has exactly 24 hours to come alone to the old Riverside warehouse on 5th Street, or the little girl dies slowly and painfully. They drove away with Emma, leaving Marcus broken and bleeding on the sidewalk, listening to his daughter's terrified screams fade into the distance. Marcus was rushed to the hospital for the second time in 4 months, but this time his physical injuries were minor compared to the agony in his heart. His daughter was gone, kidnapped by a madman, and it was all because he had gotten involved with Princess Isabella. Isabella arrived at the hospital within 30 minutes, her face pale with terror and guilt. She had tears streaming down her cheeks, and her hands were shaking. I'm going to the warehouse tonight, she said immediately without any hesitation. I won't let an innocent child suffer because of me. No, Marcus said, struggling to sit up despite his injuries. Isabella, it's obviously a trap. Victor will kill you both. You know he will. I can't let Emma die because she's close to me, Isabella said with firm determination. This is all my fault. If I hadn't gotten involved in your lives, Emma would be safe at home right now. Captain Rodriguez tried desperately to reason with her. Princess, we need at least 12 hours to plan a proper rescue operation. Going there alone tonight is absolute suicide, and it won't save the child. But Isabella had already made her decision. Her mind was completely set. I've spent my whole life running and hiding from Victor Montenegro. I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of other people getting hurt because of me. It ends tonight. Marcus forced himself out of the hospital bed, ignoring the pain from his injuries. If you're going to that warehouse, then I'm going with you. Marcus, you're hurt and you're not trained for this. That's my daughter. Marcus's voice cracked with raw emotion. I already failed to protect her once. I will not fail her again. I don't care if I die tonight, but I'm going to save Emma. That night, Marcus and Princess Isabella approached the abandoned Riverside warehouse together. Isabella had insisted they come without the security team. Victor had been very clear that any sign of backup would result in Emma's immediate death. But Captain Rodriguez and his best men were hidden in strategic positions around the building, waiting for the right moment to strike. The warehouse was dark, cold, and filled with shadows. Their footsteps echoed eerily as they walked carefully through the main entrance. Victor. Isabella called out bravely. I'm here just like you demanded. Let the child go. You have what you wanted. Suddenly, bright spotlights blazed on, temporarily blinding them. Victor Montenegro stood on a metal platform 20 feet above them, holding Emma with a gun pressed against her small head. The little girl was crying but trying her best to be brave. Daddy, she cried when she saw Marcus. I knew you would come for me. My beautiful princess, Victor said with a sick, twisted smile. You actually came. And you brought your pathetic knight in shining armor. Let her go right now, Victor, Isabella said with calm authority. You have me here. That was our agreement. Let the child go and I'll do whatever you want. Oh, but the agreement has changed significantly, Victor laughed like a maniac. You see, I've had time to think about this situation. Simply marrying you isn't enough anymore. You've embarrassed and humiliated me too many times. First, you'll watch me kill your precious protector and his innocent daughter. Then you'll marry me, knowing that their blood is forever on your hands. Marcus felt a rage like nothing he had ever experienced. This evil monster wanted to murder Emma, his precious little girl who was everything good and pure in the world. All the pain and anger from losing Sarah came flooding back, but now it was mixed with a father's primal fury. You want to hurt someone? Marcus stepped forward boldly. Then hurt me, you coward. Leave my daughter alone. She's innocent. Marcus, don't provoke him, Isabella whispered urgently. But Marcus was beyond hearing anything except his daughter's quiet crying. 4 months of fear, 3 years of grief, and now seeing Emma in mortal danger had awakened something absolutely primal and unstoppable in him. You think you're powerful because you have money and guns? Marcus shouted at Victor with pure contempt. You're nothing but a pathetic coward who hurts women and children. Victor's face turned bright red with murderous rage. You're less than nothing. A factory worker who got lucky. You don't deserve to breathe the same air as royalty. I'm a father, Marcus said quietly, but with absolute steel in his voice. And fathers will do anything to protect their children. In one fluid motion, Marcus grabbed a heavy metal pipe from the floor and hurled it with all his strength at the spotlight above Victor's head. The warehouse plunged into complete darkness. In the chaos and confusion, Isabella screamed the prearranged signal, "Now Rodriguez." Windows shattered as Captain Rodriguez and his tactical team burst through every entrance. Red laser dots from sniper rifles danced across the walls and ceiling. Marcus ran toward the platform where Emma was being held, guided by her voice calling for him in the darkness. Multiple guns fired almost simultaneously. Muzzle flashes lit up the warehouse like deadly fireworks. When the emergency lights finally came on, Victor Montenegro was on the ground, wounded in both legs and screaming in pain but still alive. Emma ran straight into Marcus's arms, completely safe and unharmed. Princess Isabella stood nearby with tears of pure relief streaming down her face. Victor Montenegro was immediately arrested and charged with kidnapping, attempted murder, terrorist threats, and a dozen other serious crimes. With Princess Isabella's detailed testimony, the evidence gathered by her security team, and his long history of violence and intimidation, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But the story was far from over. During the investigation, police discovered that Victor's criminal organization had connections to many other crimes, including the drunk driving case that killed Marcus's wife Sarah. The driver, Richard Blackwood, had been working for one of Victor's companies and was following Victor's orders to intimidate a business rival when he got drunk and killed Sarah. When Victor's empire collapsed, Richard Blackwood lost everything: his job, his mansion, his expensive cars. He ended up bankrupt and homeless, finally paying a real price for destroying Marcus's family. A week after the warehouse incident, as Marcus was tucking Emma into bed, she asked the question that had been on her mind. "Daddy, are you going to marry Princess Isabella?" Marcus was completely shocked. "What makes you ask that, sweetheart?" "Because she loves you," Emma said with the simple wisdom of a child. "And you love her too. I can see it in how you look at each other. And I love her too. She makes us both happy in ways we haven't been since Mommy died." Marcus sat on the edge of her bed, amazed by his daughter's insight. "Emma, she's a princess who will be queen someday. I'm just a regular man. We come from completely different worlds." "You're a hero, Daddy," Emma interrupted with absolute certainty. "Princess Isabella told me so. She said you saved her life and then you saved mine. Heroes deserve to be happy, and princesses should marry heroes, not mean men like Victor." The next day was Saturday, and Princess Isabella came to visit as she did every weekend. She and Emma spent the morning baking chocolate chip cookies while Marcus watched, amazed at how perfectly natural they looked together, like a real family. "Marcus," Isabella said later that afternoon when Emma was taking her nap, "I need to tell you something very important." They sat together on the couch, and Marcus felt his heart start beating faster with anticipation and nervousness. "My uncle contacted me yesterday," Isabella said carefully. "He wants me to return to Valdoria immediately. He thinks it's too dangerous for me to stay here any longer." Marcus felt his heart sink like a stone. "When do you have to leave?" "That depends entirely on your answer to a question I want to ask you," Isabella said softly. "What question?" She turned to face him completely, taking both of his hands in hers. "Marcus Thompson, would you and Emma be willing to come to Valdoria with me? Not as guests, but as my family?" Marcus stared at her in complete amazement. "Isabella, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that I love you," she said with tears in her eyes. "I love you both more than I ever thought possible. You and Emma have become everything to me. You've shown me what real love, real courage, and real family actually mean." She squeezed his hands gently. "I know this seems impossible. I know we come from different worlds. But Marcus, I don't care about titles or protocols or what people think. I care about the man who risked his life to save a complete stranger. I care about the father who would die to protect his daughter. I care about the person who makes me laugh and makes me want to be the best version of myself." Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. "Isabella, I love you too. I've been afraid to say it because I thought it was hopeless." "Then don't be afraid anymore," she whispered. "Say yes. Come with me to Valdoria. Let me be Emma's stepmother. Let us be a real family." Marcus looked deep into Isabella's emerald eyes and saw his entire future. Not as a broken widower drowning in grief and struggling to survive, but as a man ready to love again and build something beautiful. "Yes," he said without hesitation. "Yes, we'll come with you to Valdoria. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Isabella's face lit up with pure joy. She threw her arms around him and kissed him with all the love in her heart. "Yay." Emma's excited voice came from the hallway. She had been listening the entire time. Are we really going to live in a castle with towers and everything? Isabella laughed and swept Emma up in her arms. Yes, my darling girl. A beautiful castle with gardens full of flowers, stables with gentle horses, and a library with thousands of books in every language you can imagine. And you'll really be my new mommy? Emma asked hopefully. Isabella looked at Marcus, who nodded with tears of happiness in his eyes. If you want me to be, Isabella said softly. I do. Emma hugged her tightly. I love you so much, Mommy Isabella. This is the best day of my whole life. 1 year later, the small kingdom of Valdoria celebrated the most beautiful royal wedding in its history. Princess Isabella married Marcus Thompson in a ceremony that was broadcast live around the world, touching the hearts of millions of people. Marcus wore the traditional uniform of a Valdorian prince, but he had earned his place not through birthright or politics, but through pure courage and love. Emma walked down the aisle as the flower girl, wearing a gorgeous pink dress and carrying a basket of rose petals, with the biggest smile anyone had ever seen. The ceremony took place in the ancient cathedral of Valdoria, with its soaring arches and stained glass windows telling stories of love and heroism throughout the ages. When the archbishop said, "You may kiss the bride," Marcus looked into Isabella's eyes and saw not just his wife, but his partner, his best friend, and his future happiness. After the wedding, Isabella was officially crowned Queen Isabella I of Valdoria, and Marcus became prince consort. Emma became Princess Emma Maria Santos Thompson, though she insisted her friends just call her Emma. 3 years after the wedding, Queen Isabella and Prince Marcus welcomed twins, Prince James and Princess Sophia. Emma, now 11 years old, was the most loving and protective big sister anyone could imagine. On quiet evenings, Marcus would stand on the balcony of the royal palace, watching his children play in the magnificent gardens below. Emma would be reading stories to the twins just like Princess Isabella used to read to her. "What are you thinking about?" Isabella would ask, coming up behind him and wrapping her arms around his waist. "That night in the park," Marcus would always answer. If someone had told me that taking a bullet would lead to all this happiness, I would have thought they were completely insane. Isabella would smile and rest her head on his shoulder. "Do you know what I think about?" "What?" "I think about how you didn't hesitate for even a second to help a stranger in trouble. You had every reason to keep walking. You had your own problems, your own pain, your own responsibilities. But you chose to be a hero when it mattered most." They would watch their children play, safe and loved and full of joy. "Do you ever miss your old life?" Isabella asked one evening. Marcus thought carefully. "I miss some things. I miss the simplicity sometimes. But I wouldn't trade what we have now for anything in the universe." He paused thoughtfully. "And you know what? I got my revenge in the end after all." "How so?" Marcus smiled with satisfaction. Richard Blackwood, the drunk driver who killed Sarah, ended up exactly where he deserved. And Victor got life in prison. Sometimes the universe has its own perfect way of bringing justice. Isabella squeezed his hand. "Sarah would be so proud of you, and so proud of the amazing young woman Emma is becoming." As if she could hear them talking about her, Emma looked up from the garden and waved enthusiastically. "Mama Isabella. Papa. Come play with us. James wants you to push him on the swing." Marcus and Isabella looked at each other and smiled with pure contentment. Then they ran down to the gardens to play with their children. A single father who became a prince, a princess who found true love, and a little girl who got her perfect fairy tale ending. In the end, Marcus learned that sometimes the greatest rewards in life come from the simplest acts of courage and kindness. By choosing to help someone in desperate need, he found not just love and wealth, but a purpose that transformed his life and the lives of everyone around him. And they all lived happily ever after, just like in the very best fairy tales.